everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. For come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And welcome to another week and another preview. This one has a lot of stakes, not only for the team, but also for the future of this show, because, oh boy, it is the second conference game, technically, since the first game of the year was a conference game. That went up in Farmington in Iowa State. But it is the first home conference game of the year up against UCF. And just full disclosure, we are going to talk about the team more generally. But UCF, to me, still theoretically could be anything on the year. I don't think they're as dominant as their start would leave you to believe. But that also doesn't mean that I think that they're a bad team, because I was the one who at the beginning of the year said, hey, maybe UCF is a team that's going to fight for bowl eligibility. And they're 3 wins away from doing that after a 3-0 start. But, it is a homecoming of a sense for their head coach, which, Connor, that kind of leads you into the opening notes here outside of, well, you can just do the first two as well as the first one on the offensive breakdown.
Yeah. Scott Frost, he is back at UCF, where he kind of made his name. It's a double homecoming this week because he was a GA in 2006 at K-State under Ron Prince, and what might be the most unlikely excellent coaching tree year of all time, because that was James Franklin, Raheem Morris coordinators, I think, that year. Then you throw in Scott Frost as a GA. It's kind of shocking that those teams didn't do better, but for one terrorist named Ron Prince. So a bit of a double homecoming for Scott Frost. But yeah, unlikely-ish convincing start for UCF, although UNC is likely going to be very, very, very bad the rest of the year. But for UCF, if you just look at their counting stats, they're doing fairly well. They're 36th in yards per game. They have a balanced attack of rushing and passing. And they're also 29th in scoring offense this year. They convert about 44% of their third down chances, and they've scored on all but one of their 13 red zone possessions, with 7 of those being touchdowns. They've also done well holding on to the ball this year, so 26th in time of possession per game this season. Did you want me to read this next one? I can.
No. That's on me. But just looking at the counting stats, it really does sort of, and of course, this comes with the caveat of, who have they played? They've played a Jacksonville State squad that has a new head coach and is going through some pretty significant changes. A North Carolina A&T team who will struggle to compete at the FCS level. And then North Carolina, who has turned into more of a sideshow than they are a college football team. But even then, it still is impressive to put up those numbers, no matter the level of competition that they have. And it shows that they have the pieces to be competitive. It shows that they aren't going to be a tire fire that a lot of people seem to really project them to be. And I do think that a lot of that has to do with the sort of changes in offense that UCF has had this season and compared to last season and even Scott Frost 1.0.
Yeah, they've definitely made some pretty significant changes, but yeah, you're right. Their schedule not great, but like Jacksonville State, like that game was closer than it should have been, although it's kind of hard to tell this early in the season how good anyone out of the Coosa will be. Taven Jackson's been good for him so far, kind of having a career renaissance. right now after a couple of years at Indiana and ending up at Tennessee out of high school. He was a one-time K-State recruit. It's Haven Jackson, that is. He's made his way in his third conference now. So it's been a long road for him. But more broadly on their offense, they've been a team that they really rely on the traditional principles of establishing the run first to really open up the passing game. Almost 58% of their passing plays are off of play action, with them throwing screens 16% of the time, and then they sprinkle in RPOs occasionally.
Yeah, so a lot of the screen calls that they do have the RPO component attached to them. So if there's a screen pass that they're running, the odds are that they're running an RPO off of it. And, those RPOs are actually pretty diverse in what they're able to run. They do run a few QB power they do run QB power, QB counter actions. They do run inside zone with the running back. But it really is just sort of this back to basics for how a running game should operate in modern college football, which, again, basics work when you're just outright better than the other teams that you're going up against. But who knows, maybe we'll see some more schematic wrinkles whenever they go up against a K-State team that I do think is wildly more talented than anything else they've faced this year. But that's also kind of where you get into the scheming that they've had this season.
Yeah, it's been a lot different from the Gus Malzahn era at UCF as well as the Scott Frost 1.0. So whereas both of those 10 years, they featured almost exclusively spread, so 3 or 4 wide receivers. This era has been a lot more multiple and is much more comfortable using multiple tight ends. That's not saying that they don't use 11 personnel. That's technically the majority, but it's a lot closer than it was last year. And, some of that, I guess, is also kind of college football. Sort of the pendulum is starting to swing back the other way a little bit over the last, 5 or so seasons.
And I like how you use the word pendulum to describe it, because it really does, just depending on what year you're in or where you're at in the cycle, you're either going to be, pure spread, or you're going to be a little bit more pro style with outside zone stuff. I mean, some of the most successful offenses that, I'm thinking of that you get in the biggest conferences, Big Ten, SEC, even a little bit, though the Big 12 was ahead of the curve, like they somehow normally are with the offensive part of it, even when it's going back to pro style, is a lot of that wide zone, 2 tight end offense that you see now. A lot of Mizzou use, Georgia, not as much Ohio State, but still it's sort of that pistol blended offense. They don't use a whole lot of pistol at UCF, but they are more comfortable using multiple tight ends, even though they're still definitely a team that majors in 3 wide receiver sets.
Yeah, but getting to some more of their offensive details, some of their favorite play calls, particularly in the RPO, they have a dart QB counter with a running back swing attached to it. So that means more plainly the running back is running to the 3 receiver side, so the field side more often than not, before the snap, and the quarterback has the option either throw that or run the ball behind a pulling tackle.
Yeah. And it's a pretty basic readout for the quarterback. They're going to most of the time be watching that strong side linebacker, or if you're in a dime set, which is 6 defensive backs, they're going to be looking at that strong side safety, basically whoever is going to play the space on the side of the field side. Means there's more, is the side farther away from the sideline, I should clarify. But they're going to read them. If they move out to the running back side, they run the ball. And if they're willing to stay in and try to defend the quarterback, they're going to throw the screen. And a lot of this offense is really based on those sort of if-then statements. you're not going to get a lot of super duper complex reads with this offense, which is fine. For a college offense, that is perfectly fine. I mean, the Cam Newton offense famously had like 3 total options in like the entire playbook. So if you do take away both of those options, they're not going to know what to do. But those 2 options are so hard to stop at the same time. And that's the basics of any RPO offense. And they also implement, outside of just RPOs, they also implement a little bit more in the more traditional option game.
Yeah, they love the option play and running the quarterback, which makes a lot of sense given who they have under center. They use both the traditional zone read option and some more old school quarterback power, especially in the red zone or in more short yardage situations.
Yeah. And I know that Taven Jackson only has about 20-ish carries
It's exactly
on
20.
the – oh, nice. Has 20 carries on the year. That doesn't mean that he's not looking to run. He's not a running threat in this offense. That just means that teams recognize that and are willing to commit to him being the key on the option play, and he's going to be able to hand the ball off. But he punished, I'm thinking specifically of UNC, he did punish them for not accounting for him. I believe he got a rushing touchdown that game. And
yeah, he ran the ball 10 times in that game.
Yeah. So they weren't keying in on him. He ran on them, and who's shocked? And that kind of, in the passing game, it is a lot of those if-then statements as well. But there's one concept in particular they love.
Yeah, they're using most of the spread staples in the passing game, but notably, you're going to see a lot of mesh out of this team. Which, if you've been listening to these previews, we've mentioned mesh already a few times. It's a very popular play call because it generally works. It's a pretty good play call. So K-State ran it a ton. With Gordy Messingham and throwing to Phillip Brooks on like 3rd and medium. Skylar Thompson made a lot of bread and butter on those 3rd and medium mesh plays. But UCF runs it a lot as well.
Mesh is also known as you're playing man coverage, stop doing that play.
Yeah, which could be pretty effective against a K-State team that really likes to run a house blitz on major 3rd downs. So big moments in the game, Clanderman gets very blitz happy, which he already is. But he loves a cover 0 blitz in key situations, and mesh can be a great tool against those because it's a quick route. And it really is a great man beater. So,
yeah. But now we can start talking about the notable offensive players, and we're going to start, as we normally do. I think the only time that we have not started with the quarterback in the history of this show was when we were going up against a triple option offense. So, anyway, here's the quarterback.
Yeah, Taven Jackson, he's a 2-time transfer, started at Tennessee, made his way to Indiana, his kind of hometown team. But he's been usurped since the Signetti regime began there. And so now he's down at UCF for, I believe, his final year. Going back through his recruiting notes, K-State did offer him out of high school, and he was a class of 22 guy. So he's he's a veteran at this point. He's also seen his fair share of offensive systems, but UCF probably complements his skill set the best of the ones he's seen. He's very gifted physically. Notably, his strength is one of his best gifts. He has plus arm strength and an ability to fit the ball into tight windows just because he's able to put a lot of zip onto passes. He's not the absolute fastest guy in the world, but he can scramble and run. And he leverages the fact that he's a lot larger than most defenders that he's going against, and that strength helps him get the tough extra yards. He's listed at 6'4", 212, and he's every bit of that frame. So he is a tough guy to take down. And although he hasn't shown it on tape yet this year, he does have a weird mechanical thing where he kind of hops when he throws and turns his upper body away from where he's throwing, like he's about to get hit even when he's clean. This could affect his accuracy, but he hasn't really been tested so far in the passing game in any sort of meaningful way. So he's been getting away with it.
Yeah. And a lot of Taven Jackson's game really is just sort of, I don't want to make it sound like he's stupid, but it's just the nature of the offense is get your one read, get your second read in, then run, or extend the play. And most of the time that first or second option has been open for him this year, or at least open enough to where he has a rocket arm and he can just throw it in. So I am curious to see how he will be tested, especially his accuracy, because even in the games that he's played, he hasn't had the major accuracy issues, but he's been more generally accurate than surgically accurate. And I am curious to how that's going to operate against a better team where better accuracy and more reads might be necessary, especially considering he just hasn't been tested this year, which sounds so strange given that he's played a power 4 opponent. But again, that's just what it is.
Yeah, UNC has been just an absolute dumpster fire to start this year. So this year they hardly qualify as a power conference opponent. Frankly, the ACC hardly qualifies as a power conference this year. You look at the analytics, the Big 12 is much closer to the Big 10 in terms of quality than it is the ACC. And on the flip side, the ACC is actually closer to the American than it is to the Big 12. So mind the gap between the Big 12 and the ACC. But that's a bit of a side tangent. Moving on, I guess another notable player here, and that's running back Miles Montgomery. Some would put his battery made Jaden Nixon here because he has more yardage, and that is true. And he also is a pseudo old friend, familiar name because he spent 3 years at Oklahoma State. But Miles Montgomery has nearly tripled the amount of carries. Still has fewer yards, but that's just because he's more of a bruising back. Jaden Nixon is the explosive guy, but Miles Montgomery, he's a bruiser, kind of in the style of Army fullbacks we saw a few weeks ago. That's a bit more traditional offense for him. Of his about 150 yards on the year, 116 have come after contact. As a trade-off, though, his longest carry on the year is just 15 yards. So, in short, he's a consistent running back who's not going to hit a lot of home runs, but he's going to keep you on schedule and get the dirty yards right after contact that a lot of running backs struggle with a bit. And, I mean, that's a back that K-State, I think, would love to have right now. Because you're seeing younger and experienced backs not get those yards after contact in the same way that DJ and even Deuce did. So, just because he doesn't have the flashy stats like Jaden Nixon doesn't mean he's not a valuable piece to this offense.
Yeah. It's also worth noting that Miles Montgomery is also technically an old-ish friend because he was there at UCF last year, but he was at Cincinnati the years before that. So sort of a weird Big 12 merging of backfields down in Orlando between Jaden Nixon. But I'd say that they complement each other very well in terms of their skill set, where Jaden Nixon's the more speed back and Miles Montgomery is the basically nose in it kind of back. But that doesn't mean that both skill sets don't have value. It's just that they're better when they play off of each other, which honestly kind of makes their RPO game even a little more threatening because you can't really just key in on anything because no matter which back they have in, Taven Jackson is still on the field. So he can run the ball powerfully as well. Miles Montgomery can block as well, or Jaden Nixon can just go out and run a little route. But a final notable offensive player is he's one character trait away from being like perfect matched stereotype.
Yeah, and that's a wide receiver, Dwayne Thomas Jr. Pretty much every stereotype you can think of for a traditional slot receiver has been put into Dwayne Thomas Jr. Doesn't make much in the way of flashy plays, but he gets open and settles into soft spots. He doesn't drop passes. Half his catches have been first downs, and he is pretty much the complete epitome of a security blanket wide receiver. He's leading UCF in receiving so far this year. Doesn't have a touchdown yet, but they've only thrown 3 passing touchdowns. So that's just more product of the offense than anything. But he leads them for sure.
And if you're wondering what the one trait he doesn't have to be a stereotypical wide slot receiver is, he's not white. So he, in an offense that prioritizes, just feel what you can, try to get to your first or second read, a guy like this is someone that's very, very important to the offense. He doesn't need to be a flashy guy. He just needs to catch the ball and get open. And getting open is the most important skill set that a wide receiver can have at just about any level. I will take a guy who can get open but has occasional drop issues than a vertical ball, jump ball merchant who is going to always have someone attached to his hip. I will always take the guy who can get open, and Dwayne Thomas is exactly that. So the offense, the big thing with them is it's the same story as the entire team, really, where they just haven't been tested up to this point in the year. But that doesn't mean that they don't have the pieces or they don't have the scheme to be a solid team. And K-State has shown that they've had trouble with offenses that honestly have less. I mean, Noah Fifita is a better quarterback than Taven Jackson. If you are going to fight me on that, I really don't know where you're going to make your argument, other than Taven Jackson is taller. But I do think that this team has more in the way of true pieces than a team that K-State lost to. In a team that K-State just lost to, that was actively trying to hand them the game towards the back end. But even then, that's more of an offensive issue, which now we can talk about the defensive side of the ball for UCF.
Yeah, so the defense has maybe been the biggest surprise from this team. Because UCF has not only decided to have a good defense, but this defense is coached by Alex Grinch. And this is the same guy, Alex Grinch, who led Lincoln Riley to have some of the worst defenses in the country when he was with him at Oklahoma and USC. So Alex Grinch, I mean, his name has kind of been a sort of a punchline for defenses the last several years. So it's been a bit of a career renaissance sort of deal for him to have the start that he has.
Yeah. And it is super strange to put the terms good defense and Alex Grinch together. And here's where I will push back a little bit on the they haven't played anybody argument, because yes, they haven't played anybody, necessarily that's a world beater, but they've played 3 different types of schemes and have played against all of them very well. Jacksonville State has a very quarterback run game oriented scheme, like spread quarterback running game. And they came out and played very well against that, because even if you're in that scheme, just the law of averages dictates you're going to have one big quarterback run off of that type of scheme. That's just what's going to happen. And they managed to avoid that. Then I played North Carolina A&T and then North Carolina, both playing a very different scheme, sort of RPO-based scheme, play action, however you want to define whatever North Carolina is doing. And they played well against those as well. So talent disparity, definitely there. And we will get to that when we talk about their defensive players. But I am willing to give them credit that they've adjusted very well to the different schemes that they face. Like, they haven't had those schematic hiccups that you'd perhaps expect early on, especially going up against teams that run very different offenses.
Yeah, so I guess the couple of years off from coaching for Alex Grinch have paid some dividends for him because he's seemed to come out the other end of the tunnel. I'm a better coach because of it. But moving on, they're tied for sixth in the nation right now in points per game, which they are tied with Arizona, funnily enough. They're tied for the second best red zone defense in the entire country, only giving up scores 50% of the time and touchdowns just 33% of the time on those possessions. They set a respectable 32nd in the nation in third down conversion rate at just under 30%, which is really, really good. It's still early, but that's a really good number.
Yeah. I don't have anything else. It's just the next two notes, really.
Yeah. They run the same 4-2 hybrid front. Just about everybody seems to nowadays, to varying levels of success across the country. But another thing that this defense has been good at is mixing up their pressures. They're not going to do an Arizona, or at least haven't shown they are, and run a very aggressive blitzing defense, but rather they're going to carefully change how they send their traditional four. Sometimes they just rush straight up. Other times they have linebackers that will loop around. So they're mixing in creativity, trying to keep the offensive line off balance.
Yeah, and that doesn't just extend to pass rush as well. They've also have like this weirdly unique way of playing against the inside zone running game, where normally an inside zone play, I mean, put simply, it puts the onus on the running back to find a gap when the offensive line is moving laterally. What a lot of teams will do is in the shotgun inside zone game, the side opposite the running back will pinch inside, try to attack an inside shoulder. They actually do the opposite, where the weak side is the one pinching on the inside, and they're just trying to backdoor the blocks, which has actually proven to be very solidly effective for them this year. It doesn't work on pistol alignments, so maybe K-State runs those a little more because they do play those more straight up. But yeah, they're just really creative with how they choose to attack blocks, and especially with how they're going to send four, sometimes five. It's very rare that they're going to send more than five. And one of those is almost always going to be a blitzing linebacker looping to the outside. So it is going to take a lot in the way of communication, or a lot in the way of, this linebacker is going to take his first step forward, which, yes, their linebackers do have an aggression problem with stepping forward in the play action game. But granted, they played mostly running teams. I'll be interested to see how they're willing to interact with each other if there is a play action sort of scheme, which I think that does lead us pretty nicely into the coverage section here.
Yeah. Alex Grinch, if you've followed his career, which because he, I think, has been a bit more in the spotlight than most defensive coordinators, just because he was on some high-profile OU teams, and a lot of times, particularly in the later years with Lincoln Riley, his defenses were kind of the reason those teams didn't get further. He was known for running a lot of cover four and just kind of letting pieces fall where they may. So right now he's still using mostly two high safety coverages, but he has been a lot more willing to play man coverage. And that's been a massive boon for him. It's really helped improve his play calling across the board and his scheming, and it's resulted in better defense.
Yeah, and he'll run a lot more man coverage. He'll also run cover six, which is quarter, half, which is still technically a two high safety coverage, but he mostly does that against overloaded or unbalanced fronts, so like trip sets to one side. But yeah, he has gotten a little more, I'm not going to say a little more, he's gotten a lot more aggressive with his style of play, and it's been working out for him pretty well. And that there is perhaps no better transition for why his defenses have been able to be a little less conservative than this group, because for one of the first times, we don't have a single player that we're going to cover at once. Granted, we do have one standout individual later. This is rather an entire group that is making their defense go.
Yeah, that's pretty much their entire defensive backfield. It's kind of like cheating because this is supposed to be notable players. This is a notable room, but we're going to take the opportunity to say it. Their primary defensive backs, Antoine Jackson and Jaden Bellamy on the outside, Braden Marshall at nickel, and Philip Dunham at strong safety. Really, they've all been excellent this year. And they've all been great for pretty much the same reason. And that's that they stay in passing lanes and get their hands up to bat the ball. This group has been targeted 32 times, and they've only given up 20 catches, with at least a few of those being screen passes. So really their only collective flaw is that they've gotten away with a lot in terms of grabbing. But even then, they get the benefit of the doubt just because they're so sticky in coverage anyway. It becomes a little bit more difficult to justify kind of calling them for holding or pass interference.
Yeah, and to my count, if I'm remembering correctly, I forgot to write it down, but I seem to remember that like maybe 6 of those may have been credited as screen pass completions. And if that's the correct number, this defensive backfield, or rather those core 4 guys, have given up less than 50% of their targets for receptions. You can take a look at the competition they've played all you want. I don't care if you're playing against a D3 school, that will impress me, because it's just so unbelievable that you're playing coverage that well, especially in an era of spread offenses, and Jacksonville State, who is very good at spreading the field, and you're allowing that low of a percentage. And all of them do have that same similar strength where they're just very, very sticky. And even if they're not playing in like a pure man coverage scenario, they do just enough to get in the way of the quarterback's vision. So they're going to sort of hover back a little bit. It's like, you really shouldn't throw that ball. And if they try to throw the ball, it's just going to be a PBU anyway. Though I will say that they aren't going, I wouldn't call them a collection of playmakers, I think would be how I would describe it, because I think they're credited with as a total of like 3 interceptions on the year. 2 of those were batted balls where someone else sort of cleaned up after them. But that doesn't take away from how good this room has been during the duration of this season. Granted, K-State will be miles, their receiver room will be miles ahead of anything that they have faced up to this point. Despite their strength, I do think I will take the matchup of specifically Jace Brown against probably Antoine Jackson. And I think Jaden Bellamy versus Jerron Tibbs will be at least a push. But I can't give enough flowers to this defensive back room. And everyone else is sort of a second player to this, though there is one player that definitely is making more of a name for himself than the rest of the defense.
Yeah, and that's one of their edge rushers, Nigel Lee Kelly. He's been an exceptional edge rusher this year, and a large part of that has been his ability to stack and shed blocks with relative ease. And he's able to accomplish that through having fast hands, and he's fleet of foot. He's an extremely quick guy that can leverage that in several different ways, whether that's speed to power on a bull rush or just trying to run around an offensive tackle. He's more than capable of accomplishing both of those goals.
Yeah, he's the player that he's kind of their Toby Osunsanmi, except for I think that he's a bit stronger than Toby is, and that's no disrespect to Toby because he, pound for pound, I do think he is a remarkably strong player. I just think that Nigel Lee Kelly is sort of on a different level while keeping about 80% of the speed that Toby has, because Toby's ungodly fast for an edge rusher. But combining that strength with being that hybrid player and how they're going to sort of mix up where they're sending the pressure from, he is going to be the guy that is going to be the consistent threat against the K-State offensive line. I will say that I like the matchup on him versus Pastore on like true pass sets. In the running game, that worries me a little bit more. Pastore versus Nigel Kelly in the running game concerns me a little bit more. But all in all, the defense really does just hinge on their defensive backfield being as talented as it is. Their linebackers aren't particularly special, and they have a tendency to be overly aggressive in the running game, leaving the middle of the field open for a team that's willing to take advantage of it or can take advantage of it. And I guess now we can sort of go into keys to victory projections for I didn't even write it down on the outline. That sort of tells you where we're at up to this point. But say what you will about Avery Johnson, and I think there's been a lot to say. I think there has been perhaps blame misassigned to other people, or perhaps some blame misassigned to Avery himself for how the offense is played. But he has been generally pretty effective when given the opportunity to attack over the middle. And I'm talking like actual opportunities to do so. He's been pretty good, mostly because of his ability to layer the football. So to me, the biggest key for K-State offensively to have success is to abuse the middle of the field as best as they can. Because outside, I don't think is the winning formula for this game in particular.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you. Working the soft middle, I think is going to be a big part of this game. K-State has shown, despite how the passing attack went the Arizona game, that they can attack downfield if they need to. Like this year has seen more go ball completions than we've seen in a couple of seasons, I think, for the K-State offense, particularly for touchdowns. There's been some explosive plays. But to set that up, we're going to need to be able to work the middle. So that's going to mean probably some Jace Brown the slot. But a big thing is we have to utilize the tight ends more effectively. And the tight ends also have to be better. Because, we're kind of in a bit of both situation with why they haven't been great this year. And it's their own performance and I think scheming. Neither have been great really outside of week 0 for Garrett Oakley. That's really about the only truly impressive tight end performance we've seen this year. Lincoln Cure finally played some, but he was not targeted. He played 13 snaps and had a few good blocks. But outside of that, we didn't see a lot of him, and we might need to see a bit more of him this year if we want to see some more effectiveness from that tight end group. But I think that they could be really useful for maybe drawing safeties up a little bit too much and opening up the deep passing game.
And I also think that Garrett Oakley is a really good shout for this game, because I do think that he's a piece that is capable of sort of striking fear back into Alex Grinch and maybe getting him back into his old ways, where he is going to play a lot more conservatively, just because, well, you have this tight end that's going to work over the middle of the field. You have a collection of over-aggressive linebackers. That's just asking for disaster if you're a defensive coordinator. So you either change the mindset of the linebackers and give up a little bit more in the running game, which if I was a defensive coordinator, given how K-State running game has been this year, that would be my choice. But I don't know how Alex Grinch is going to play and if he's going to go back to his old tricks. And I do think that another significant part of this is, just talking from the K-State perspective, is how does K-State sort of respond to their inability to run the football against a defense that's going to play the run in a completely different way than a team, say, like Arizona did, where Arizona was running a lot of stunts, both in the passing and the running games. Whereas UCF, they're not going to stunt a whole lot when they're in the running, or they're not going to stunt their defensive line, but they are going to bring that extra body. Now, granted, it's not Arizona's where they're bringing an extra 3 bodies, but I am interested to see how Matt Wells sort of steps up to that challenge in particular.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges that this offense needs to step up to this week in general, because it's been pretty bad. And K-State fans are, I think, collectively like about to, if not having already lost their minds in regards to the offensive execution, particularly relative to the expectations this year. So I'm hopeful that the week off has given the staff enough time to, at the very least, make the offense feel competitive, because things just kind of got worse week to week, I feel like, so far. So hopefully Kleiman's been able to work some kind of Bill Snyder magic, where it kind of felt like towards the end of his tenure here, we'd always start the season a little slow, but somehow we'd end up finishing the year on like a 6-game win streak pretty much every time. So hopefully Chris Kleiman's kind of found the secret sauce for that, particularly on the offensive side, because Avery should be having a better season than he currently is. Sure, some of it is his fault, but I think a lot of it is not his fault, whether that be his teammates or his coaches. That I was thinking about that today. This would be a lot more digestible if there was just one thing that we could just point like our fingers at and be like, that's the problem. That's why we suck. But it's kind of everything in varying degrees right now, which makes it very daunting. So hopefully the bye week gave this staff and players the time that they needed to make some desperately needed corrections.
Yeah. So now I think we can talk a little bit more about offensive and defensive MVPs. To me, the offensive MVP, I'm probably going to give it to Garrett Oakley just because of how he is capable of affecting how they're going to play coverage. Though I will give a bonus shout out to Dylan Edwards, assuming that, Kleiman made it sound like he's full go, like he's recovered. The bye week worked wonders on him. I will give the honorable mention to him just because over-aggressive linebacker, super fast running back, just screams wheel route or flat route immediately housed. And God knows Avery is willing to throw that flat route.
Yeah, that has been obvious so far this year. But speaking of Avery, I think I'm going to pick him for my MVP. If this offense is going to turn around and become what we were hoping it would be, it's going to start with him, the quarterback position, because he's definitely had some good moments this year, and he's definitely had some bad moments, and he's had some moments where he's been let down by the guys around him. It's been a combination of everything, and a lot of volatility, but we very badly need the Avery from the Tech game in 23 or the Avery from the Oklahoma State game in 24. So we really need Avery to show out this week.
Yeah. Who do you have for your defensive pick?
Shoot. Do I have to
go first?
No, I'll pick one. I'm just dreading having to think of literally any of them. But I'll go ahead and roll with Zayshawn Rich this week. For his flaws in run defense, he has been the most consistent guy in coverage by a long shot for K-State this year. He's been one of the stickiest corners we've had in a long time, man. And that's been really impressive to watch. So I'm hoping that he can maybe take a step forward in run defense. Jaden Nixon, we're going to need him to kind of be part of that last line if he gets anything to the outside. So could be a big week for him.
I'm actually going to go Des Purnell because the entire UCF game plan is basically revolved around find linebacker in space, bully him. And I think that Des Purnell, if he plays well, is more than capable of just sort of eliminating that philosophy and sort of making them throw their proverbial second pitch. Like, you take away their fastball, what else do they have? And I'm not sure they do have anything else if you take away their first option and their biggest desire. And I think that Des is someone that is more than capable of doing that. If I could give co-MVP, I would give it to Austin Romaine right next to him, simply because if Des plays one, Romaine would probably play the other. The universe I'm having is have Des play the outside, Romaine play the inside on those RPO plays. But again, I'm not a coach. I'm not the coach. I just have ideas sometimes. But in terms of projections for this game, as I said before, I've gone on record saying that I don't think that this is a garbage UCF team. I think that they're a team that's going to fight for bowl eligibility, and I think they're going to give teams sweats and scares, perhaps more so than people originally thought. I do, however, think they're a team that is worse than Arizona, and this is where it gets difficult because I don't want to project a loss because in my heart of hearts, I don't. Like, the analytic part of my brain, the part that watched the film, says, yeah, there's probably, K-State probably wins this game despite the worst that they have. However, the faith has been broken, more or less. So I am going to go with the part of me that watched the film and say K-State does win. I'm not going to bother with the score projection. It's going to be mad uncomfortable the entire time, and no one's going to walk away happy because everyone is going to have it stuck in their head that this is a dog water UCF team, regardless of if that's true or not, because they still could be bad. You can be a bad team and still fight for bowl eligibility. I don't think they are, but point still stands.
Yeah, I predicted a loss last time against Arizona, which unfortunately was correct. I don't know what it is, but I do actually think that this K-State team is going to come out looking more energetic than they have all year this game. I think maybe the reality of the situation has kind of hit them in this past bye week. That's not to say that it shouldn't have earlier, but I do think that maybe the realization that we might be horrible kind of laid into a group of players that were expected to be a lot better this year. So I have K-State winning this one 31-28. I don't know if this will ultimately be a get right game because that would imply that I think that this team will go on a tear and finish like 8-4, 7-5. I don't feel comfortable predicting that, but I do think that but for just a week, are going to calm the waters just a little bit. The Hurricane will go from like a Category 5 to a strong 4 instead for just a few days, and then we'll see how Baylor goes. But I think K-State just ekes out a victory.
Yeah, and for the sake of everything, God, I hope so. Because we've said it before, and I don't want to sound, like boo-hoo, woe is us. We're just random guys who have a podcast. Connor's opinion matters. Mine doesn't. But I'm joking. Both of our opinions matter in as much as all opinions do. But it will get increasingly difficult to justify the man hours that go into these preview episodes if this team just doesn't wake up.
Yeah, it'll definitely be challenging for sure. And Ace is the one that puts in, I think, the most legwork on these previews as well. I show up. Like that's most of my contribution. Like, but I guess if you're feeling blue about how the Cats are doing, take solace in the fact that literally every other sport is actually doing pretty well right now.
And at least we're not Oklahoma State.
Yeah, it could be a lot worse. It could be the absolute mess that is going on down in Stillwater, because I saw two different reports on whether Gundy was like fine with being fired or wanted to coach the rest of the season. The latest one was that he wanted to coach, and they said no, which was the opposite of the first one. Conflicting report, or no, not conflicting reports. There's reports that the staff and players found out through Twitter that he had been fired. And then another one was that the ultimate call was not actually made by the athletic director, but by the Board of Regents, which they apparently there have been significant power struggles between the university and the Board of Regents in Oklahoma, very similar to what's kind of been going on at Texas A&M. So that's a whole deal. And then they also just extended their athletic director like another 4 years. So they're just in a weird spot right now. I really hope we get things turned around, because if not, and if we stick with the status quo, we could very easily be in the same position as them this time next year. So I would prefer that not happen. And I'm sure that everybody in the Veneer complex feels the same way. So fingers crossed that the Cats do well, climb and rides off into the sunset. We have a new HCCK.
We're not trying to hide the ball there.
I'm not hiding the ball at all. I'd say it's a clue, but that would be generous.
It's not a clue. It is just a statement. That's fine. I mean, I don't know how. I still have this weirdly optimistic hope that somehow K-State finishes with 8 wins this year. And we're still going to find some way to lose in Stillwater.
That would be absurd. I think right now ESPN actually gives us, despite the year we're having, an 80% chance of winning that game, which that goes to show just how just cataclysmic things have been down in Stillwater, because I think their defense is like bottom 10 in the country.
It is.
In FBS, and their offense, I think, is in the bottom 30 or 40, depending on the metrics that you look at. Special teams, well, they certainly have to be good because Sean Snyder is their special teams coordinator. Unfortunately, did not get the interim tag, though. Went to Doug Meacham, their offensive coordinator. So it's a sad state of affairs down there. But, the flip side of what I've been talking about, which is, hey, it could be us. The flip side is that it could always be worse.
True. You have any final notes other than it could always be worse?
It could always be better as well. Volleyball is receiving votes. Soccer's off to their best start in program history. One of the men's golfers won the individual title at something called the Get Her Done Invitational and got to meet Larry the Cable Guy because of it. And then, what else was there? Busy weekend for sports. Soccer has a couple matches, including number 8, TCU. Volleyball has a couple matches, including on Sunday, top 10 Arizona State. Women's basketball just started practices, as did men's basketball. Both of those teams are looking to make the postseason and arguably are in decent position to do so. And I'm kind of getting more and more optimistic about the men's team again, despite knowing better. This team seems to, if nothing else, be like a likable team. So if we're going to be bad, we might as well be likable.
Yep, I think that's fair. I don't have anything else. So Thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdwards00.
I'm at Connor Baltazar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store, link found in our podcast and Twitter bio. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.